I would share in meetings, then people would hear me and they would ask me for help and ask me if I'd work the steps with them. So that's a beautiful process because now we get to go back through, I get to go back through those steps with somebody else. And when you
It's like you're renewing those things.
yeah, it's like you're constantly doing that. And throughout the years, year after year after year, I've sponsored, I'm not exaggerating, 100 people, and I've been able to walk through those steps with so many individuals and see it from their perspective. And the only thing I have, and the book says this, the only thing I have to give another individual is my experience, strength, and hope. Being a sponsor, I don't run their lives. I don't tell them how to live their lives. I tell them what I did. And I mostly talk about what Horace did with me.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our podcast. This is the Push Each Other to the Top podcast where we share Brent's journey of recovery one day at a time, helping each other get through hard stuff. And if you got to this point, you've heard some amazing stories already. Last time, if you remember, we talked about steps 6 through 9. So removing the defects of your character, asking God to remove your shortcomings, making a list of all those people that you've harmed, making amends directly to them, and then continue to make a personal inventory and to admit those things, right? To promptly admit it, or no, that's today. Yes, that's sorry, that would be now.
10. Yeah.
I moved ahead,
Yeah.
but we were at 9, and you completed it enough where Horace told you, okay, now get a job, and you went and got that. You had to take that first job that you were offered, which was a delivery boy job. So
Yeah.
there you go. You're off.
Pretty humbling
stuff.
Pretty humbling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's take it from there. What happened next?
Well, we talked about getting the job and we talked about me going back to school. And Horace told me to go back to school, and I walked through that with you on the last episode. And how intense that was for me to really face that fear. And that's one thing I want to really, emphasize it with the audience is, a lot of this is about just giving up and finding the courage and the strength to move forward. I haven't been able to accomplish any of these things on my own. Left to myself, I would have never gone back to school. I would have never taken that job. I wouldn't have done any of those things. So, we talk about pushing each other to the top, and I think that's vitally important. That being an addict or an alcoholic, everybody wants to do it by themselves. They think they can do it alone. And it's one of the hardest things that I've been able to face in my recovery is to actually get used to asking for help. And one of the magical things about asking for help is when you do that, you help them as well. So it's twofold. I mean, they help you, you help them. It's an amazing process. Every time I've worked the steps or worked with anybody one-on-one, I tell people when I sponsor them, I'm going to get a lot more out of this than you're going to get. And they look at me like, what are you talking about? And it always pays off. I mean, you just always get so much from helping other people. So just kind of like to get that out there and say, if you're holding yourself back and you're afraid to ask for help, or you're going to bother somebody or be a nuisance, that's not correct. You help them in their recovery, and that's what this whole thing's about. So anyway, getting through the 9th step was a big deal, especially in Horace's mind. I learned to, like I said earlier, I learned how to be a dad. I learned how to be a husband. I learned how to go to work and work 8-hour shifts and, take breaks when I was told to take breaks. And, I didn't cheat them out of 1 minute. I didn't leave early. I always got there early. and I gave him an 8 hour day, and that paid off in dividends. Ended up, going from that delivery boy job to an outside sales person, and then ended up being really, really successful in that industry. I sold solder and tools and supplies to the electronics industry, but I nailed down an account that I shared this with you once before. When my boss turned me loose to go to sell outside sales, he gave me a list of customers, and he handed me this list. His name was Rick, and he was also in the program. He handed me this list. He goes, "Here's your customer list." And he hands it to me, and I look at it, and he said, "These are all of the companies that we've been thrown out of." I'm like, "What did you just say?" "Yeah, we've literally been told not to ever come back." And I said, "This is my customer base, right?" He goes, "Yeah, this is it." And I thought he was just being a smart aleck, and like,
Yeah.
this can't be real.
Yeah.
No, he was just serious as can be. He says, "You
Wow.
want to be an outside salesman? I'm going to buy you a car. These are the people that you need to go out and sell." And so that's what I did. I went and knocked on these doors, and they were not happy to see me. I mean, it's hard enough selling stuff to people that you don't know, but when you walk in and they ask you, "What are you doing here? We threw your company out. We do not want you here." I said, "Whoa, wait a minute. You threw another salesman out. You didn't throw me out. You don't know me. I'm
Mhm.
here to tell you that I'm going to do the best job I can do. And I guarantee you, when you ask me to do something, it will be done. And I will do my best to take care of you." And that's my work. And that means a lot to me. And that the honesty and just showing up, I think they were blown away that I showed up to these places.
It's
I think they were just like, "Seriously, this guy's got a lot of guts, man.
oh yeah.
I'd tell him, I said, "I'm a new outside sales guy, and my boss gave me the companies that we've been thrown out of. So you think you're uncomfortable? I'm uncomfortable too. So let's do this."
Yeah. Wow.
And and it worked. I mean, I started picking up clients right away, just being honest with them. And I
Wow.
think that's a testimony to the program. It taught me just to be honest and real with people. Uh, Long story short, I ended up getting an account, uh, and this account, it was this company that built these little like credit card modems, and they just, I wish I would have bought their stock when I first walked in the door,
Mhm.
because I would have been a millionaire today if I would have done that. But it just kept growing and growing and changing, and they started selling to these other companies and buying companies, and they kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. They went from maybe 20 employees to 500. And I was right there along the way, going on this ride with them. So ended up selling more solder than any single source in the whole United States. And because of that, people really, really liked me. And the company, the solder company, I became really good friends with the president. It was a global company, president of that company and the vice president. And a long story, but they took me to Asia. That business left the States and went overseas, and they wanted me to go with it. They wanted me to follow it and sell in Singapore. And they brought me over to Singapore, and uh, ended up taking me to a facility in the Philippines and things like that. But they do a business a lot different over there. I didn't really like it. So anyway, I don't know how I got sidetracked on all of that. These opportunities just kept coming, and anytime that you're up against the wall, even though he gave me that list, it was people that we thrown out. I didn't shy away from it. I embraced it and I walked towards it. And I accomplished none of this stuff by myself. All this time, I'm talking to Horace. Well, what should I do here? How am I going to go sell myself? What am I going to say? I was constantly asking for help and guidance. And Uh, I didn't always follow everything Horace told me to a T when it came to that stuff because he was pretty rough around the edges. But for the most part, he gave me the inspiration that I needed to show up and do the things I needed to do. As we walk through these steps and we get into step 10, uh, we took a personal inventory of ourselves. These are maintenance steps. 10, 11, and 12 are maintenance steps, is what we
Mm,
call them.
okay.
So we continue to take personal inventory, and when we're wrong, we promptly admitted it.
Mhm.
Well, what a what an order, when we're wrong, we promptly admitted it. Now,
Yeah.
wait a minute. First off, I'm not wrong very often. And if I am, I sure the heck don't want to tell anybody about it.
Yeah.
But what that step gives me is it keeps me from turning little tiny things into resentments. And
Mhm.
remember, resentments is a number one offender.
Mm,
So if I do a step 10 every day, like the book tells me to do, I go home in the evening at night and I go over my day. How was my day today?
mm,
Did I rub anybody wrong? Did I
mm,
do something that I need to apologize for? Where am I in my program? Am I proud of the things I did today? And am I proud of the person that I am today? And so I got in this habit of just kind of asking me these questions, at the end of the day. And slowly but surely, when something would come up, I'd get in a I remember, I got in a little argument with, I can't remember if it was in a grocery store or maybe it was a car dealership. I don't know. But I kind of barked at this guy and, you know, was pissed off. And I, jumped in the middle of his stuff and told him what I thought of him. And it wasn't very good. It was pretty childish. And I remember going to him the next day and apologizing,
mm,
and I just I just told him that I was there to apologize for my behavior the day before. You want to throw me out of here still, that's fine. I understand it, but I just want to clean my side of the street up and tell you that my behavior was unacceptable to me, let alone to you. So I just started to acknowledge that when I would run into a situation where I act like a jerk, whether it was a friend or a coworker or whoever it was out there in the world, uh, I would make sure that I took responsibility for my side of the street, which is I think is a super important step. I think it's because you really think twice after you do it for a while. I really don't like apologizing to people. And if I didn't do this on a regular basis, I wouldn't have to apologize. So it's just a check to see where you're at. And and as time went on, I really realized that, when I would start barking at people and not treating people very well, had nothing to do with them, had everything to do with me. If I wasn't spiritually fit, or I was upset about whatever, I didn't get a good night's sleep, or, I wasn't feeling good about how I looked or how my hair looked, or, you know, something like that, I would take it out on other people.
mhm,
And I think we all do that.
mhm.
When I feel good about me, I treat everybody out in the world pretty darn good. But when I feel lousy about me, I treat people out there in the world not very good. And so I started recognizing a lot of this behavior. And, along with that came honesty. If I'd go to a grocery store and they'd give me too much change, I I did not want anything for nothing. I made sure they got their money back. I was super, super honest, and I would take care of my side of the street. And I
Mhm,
learned the importance of that as time
mhm,
goes on. You realized how vitally important it is to be honest and open, and and take responsibility. I use that word a lot in this podcast. I've talked about taking responsibility for my behavior quite a bit, but that's what this thing's all about. And just taking a look at you and when something happens in my world today, I mean, here I am 36 years later, my first thought is, what was my part in this? What part did I play in this?
Mhm.
And so it's become a really good habit for me to look at myself and make sure that my side of the street is taken care of.
I love that. I
Yeah,
love that. Where did that phrase come from, by the way? That my side of the street. I don't know if I love that, and I love the instruction it gives.
yeah.
Is that something Horace said, or where did you pick that up? Do you remember, or is it just something always been there?
I've always heard it. I've
Yeah,
just,
I love that.
I don't know. I think it's something that we talk a lot about in recovery.
Mhm.
So yeah, I've never really given it a lot of thought. Maybe we'll have to Google it and get the answer.
Yeah,
My side of the street, I don't know
I love that.
where
Yeah,
that.
because it really shares that you have responsibility in every situation. And just like you demonstrated, yeah, just going back and apologizing. Yeah, I've had that experience lots of times where I get a little heated because I wasn't feeling right. And so, yeah, I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah, yeah. But starting to take responsibility for your behavior really makes you look at situations totally different.
Mhm.
You know, I realize today when I'm not feeling good about Brent, then I really need to check it. And, maybe I shouldn't go out to the big bad world today because it's not ready for me. Or I need to get myself spiritually right. Or, I have to figure out what's going on inside of me and try to change that behavior before I go out into the world.
Mhm.
you know, there's that reaction. And then, for a while, I realized I was going through through my day and I would go, to a convenience store or a grocery store. I'd go do business here, there, everywhere. And one day I realized, I have no idea who I talked to today. Not one person do I remember ever looking them in the eye and
Mhm.
even acknowledge their existence. I
Mhm.
was so selfish and self-centered that I was just kind of an island by myself.
Mhm.
So I decided that I would, from now on, when I go to a grocery store or a convenience store or a fast food place, anywhere I'm doing business face to face with people, I look them in the eye. And if they've got a name tag, I call them by their name
Mhm.
and I acknowledge them. I ask them, "How's your day?" And I smile. And I'll tell you what, people treat you totally different when you do that. You know, I just had this bad habit of going through life without really seeing, smelling the roses, seeing the people around me, acknowledging people around me. So that's self-awareness, the ability to just kind of learn to be your own rudder, I guess, for lack of better words, to go through life. I mean, you need to kind of decide what kind of person you need to be. I think it'd be a really good world if everybody just looked at themselves and tried to be the best they could be on a regular basis. I see people all the time that are just so selfish. I mean, how many times do you get a door slammed in your face when you're going somewhere? The person, and you look at the person that did it, and they have no idea they did it.
Mhm.
They're
Mhm.
clueless. They're
Yeah.
in their own little world. They don't care about anybody around them. All they think about is themselves.
Mhm.
And it happened to me the other day. Some guy was going in the store and he slams the door in my face. And I just wanted to, I'll tell you, I just wanted to reach up and grab him by the neck and say, "What are you thinking, dude? I mean, you're so oblivious to life. You don't even, but you know what? I realized that he was teaching me something that I needed to learn. And that was, don't be so selfish and self-centered. Don't make the whole world about you.
Mhm.
Think
Mhm.
about other people.
Mhm.
How the little things, you can do to help people. Give somebody a grocery card at the grocery store. I mean, hold the door open for them. It doesn't matter if it's a man, woman, child. They're a person. So kind of, I try to go through my day and try to give of myself,
Mhm.
and that's the result of working the steps and being a part of this program.
Yeah.
Do I do it perfectly every day? No,
Mhm.
still
Mhm.
a work in progress.
And what are those steps that help you get into that mindset? Because sometimes you might be off on the wrong side of the bed or whatever it might be. What are those tips and tricks that you do? And maybe it's just simply in these steps that we've talked about already, but what's your kind of go-to these tools?
Well, my go-to is always the third step.
Okay.
I always revert to the third step.
Hmm.
See, those first three steps are steps that I try to do on a daily basis.
Okay.
Okay. So one, two, and three, I can't do anything without doing one. I admitted that I was powerless over alcohol and my life had become unmanageable. Two, came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. And three, has made a decision to turn my will and my life over the care of God as I understood God. So if I can live in that place where the insanity is that I think I know how to run my life.
Hmm. Hmm.
Keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. I'm not very good running my life. In
Hmm.
fact, I'm horrible.
Hmm.
And so when my life is kind of twisted and turned upside down, I just try to say, okay, let's go back to step three. And we're going to try to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God. I'm going to make a decision today that I'm going to let God run the show today, and I'm going to try to stay out of it. And it's going to be God's will, not mine.
Hmm.
And a lot of times that's enough to really ground me,
Hmm.
kind of get me back on track.
Hmm.
But there's times where, I don't think of that. I'll go 2 or 3 days and I'll just feel like I'm beating my head against the wall. Nothing's working in my life. I'm getting really angry. And then I just, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Wait. We gotta realize who's running the show here. It's not you.
Wow.
So,
Yeah, and that's a tough thing, right? I mean, it's tough for me. I don't have an addiction to alcohol or substance, but man, I would think that would be just so hard when that disease has got hold of you. I guess that's why there's step one, right? And the whole story. But it seems like that monster, that disease can rear its head, and you've got to grab that number three or one, two, and three to help you get back on track. Is
yep, yeah. So we talk about this all the time. This is a program of action. This isn't a program of thinking. In the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, there's not a chapter to the thinker. I'm going to think my way well. No, it doesn't work that way.
yeah, yeah.
We've got to just get back to and that's what's the beauty of the steps. They're so simplistic. I mean,
Mhm.
you've read them. You know
Mhm.
what they're so simple,
Yeah.
and they're just a tool for us to use when we're out there in life. It's so nice to have the tools of the program to face whatever comes my way.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter. I use the steps when I quit smoking.
Mhm.
I've used the steps when I'm unemployed. I use the steps when I've lost loved ones. I
Mhm.
I use the steps when I've been successful.
Mhm.
Uh, it's not easy for an addict and an alcoholic to face success.
Hmm.
Sounds crazy, but it's
Yeah.
almost scarier to succeed than it is to fail.
Wow.
A
How is
lot of
that?
alcoholics are used to failing. I failed all the time.
That's comfortable. The
That's
failure, we know
comfortable.
that.
That's
We know about that.
chaos is comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Chaos and fighting and going to jail and knowing every judge in the county and all the prosecutors, and
Mhm.
there's a comfort in all of that.
Hmm.
You don't do that and you start to succeed, you get promotions at work. Well, I got a promotion. Look how great I am. Let's go party. You know,
Oh,
we
yeah,
got to
yeah.
celebrate this.
Mm,
We can't just let this go.
hmm hmm
And so Horace used to tell me a lot that, you don't get too high with your successes and you don't get too low with your failures. You
hmm
kind of try to find the program's a lot about balance, When I wake up in the morning and I don't start my day off with a prayer or meditation or whatever, I start the day off unbalanced. I'm not balanced. And if I can go to too many meetings. I can spend too much time in recovery mode and, not my living mode. And so it's a constant ebb and flow of trying to figure out where you are in life, where you are if you're, seeking the balance. Being an alcoholic, if something's fun, I want it to be funner. I want it to be really fun, not just a little bit fun. So you start to recognize those things along the way, and you don't want to get too high and you don't want to get too low.
hmm
And when you're out of balance, you have to reach out and ask for help or pray or whatever. But
hmm
each and every one of us that are in recovery know exactly what I'm talking about. They know exactly what it feels like to just be out of balance. The one thing that I had to do, and we've talked about these steps, is I had a lot of growing up to do. I went from 34 years old when I walked in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, uh, and just being a 12-year-old kid in my mind. And I had a lot of learning and growing up to do. And the steps allowed me the space to do that. It gave me the courage and the strength to tap into that higher power and to start feeling success. And Jonathan, I believe that before I got to the program, I failed at everything I did. Everything I did was a failure. And since I walked in the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous and started working this recovery thing, I haven't had to fail. I'm a success every day. Every
hmm
day I don't pick up a drink or a drug, it's a successful day. Now, some days are harder than others. I, I look at that step 10 and I think it's just so vitally important that I continue to take that personal inventory, and so I do that on a regular basis. Now, 11 is one that uh, I had to learn because, it's about prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understand God. See, I like that. The God that I understand, not anybody else's God,
hmm
the God of my understanding.
hmm
And so that really opened up the door for me
hmm
when I got to 11. And a lot of people that sponsor you will say, well, we can do 11 right off the bat. We can always do the step 11 about improving our conscious contact with God as we understand God. And that's been a heck of a journey for me. Like I've said before, I didn't grow up in a home where we went to church on Sunday.
hmm
I had a church that was across the street from where I grew up. And the closest I got to church was my dad would stand in the window watching all the neighbors going to the Mormon church across the street, and he was laughing at all the guys in their suits with their white socks. I remember him saying, "Look at those idiots! They all got white socks on." It's like,
That's
why would you notice that? I mean, but
that's
that's
funny.
he got a kick out of doing that,
Yeah,
laughing at the guys going to church in their white socks.
yeah. Still happening today.
It's still happening today. But I just didn't have that upbringing. So
Yeah,
my journey has been a very personal journey,
yeah.
getting tapped into this prayer and meditation. I don't meditate as much as I would like. I go through little spurts where I'll meditate really good for a month or two, and then I kind of fall off, and for whatever reason, I, forget to do it, and then I get back to it. But I pray all the time. I pray multiple times a day, and it works for me. It's not for everybody, but I've been able to tap into something and follow a journey that I didn't even know was accessible to me. I just
Mm.
always figured if there was a God, he didn't want anything to do with me, and I remember one day I went to this meeting and I was feeling a little left out, a little um, like, does God really care about me? There's a lot of people in this world.
That's true.
Does he really even know I exist?
Yeah.
You know, you look at sand on a beach and we're just one pebble of sand. It's hard to even imagine how many people are in this world, how many souls. And like, if there's one God, how does he keep track of all that? And I was questioning a lot of this stuff one day. And I went to this meeting and I was sitting in the meeting and I was looking across the table and there was this young girl and she just had a baby. The baby was days old. You know how they are. They look like little Martians or something. They're just cute little shits. Cute little kid and
Yeah.
kind of gooing and gogging and making these little baby noises and everything. And I'm looking at her and she's holding the baby up and all of a sudden I caught her eyes and her eyes looked at that baby and you could just see the love she had for that child. It was just like overwhelming. Like she
Mhm.
had this nice little grin on her face, and you could just see how much she loved this kid. And it just hit me all of a sudden. I believe that's how my higher power loves me. And I've held on to that ever since. And that was a long, long, long time ago. And the longer I stay here, the more I believe that's true. I believe that our higher power just loves us unconditionally. You know, he doesn't judge me for what I did. He knows what I did.
Yeah.
He doesn't, you know, you hear a lot of Christians, I'm a sinner. Well, I'm a sinner, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
but I don't feel like God judges me. I
No.
feel like he probably forgave me before I even did those things. And I just don't think that I'm gonna, for some reason, I just have this warm, fuzzy feeling that everything that I did, got me, like Mary told me, got you to where you are today. And now I have the ability to sit here and do this podcast and hopefully reach out to other people and, you know, give somebody else an opportunity to just quit fighting. Let's do this thing. Let's do it together. We don't have to do this thing alone. We can do this thing together. So
Love that.
11 is really, really a powerful step that, you know, even if you don't believe, there's people in the program say, oh, I pray to the doorknob, the doorknob's more powerful than me. I never really understood that, but I've heard it a lot.
Oh yeah. Interesting.
Or they'll say, the group's my higher power, which is
Mm.
fine. It
Yeah.
doesn't, it doesn't matter. Just as long as there's something out there. I've heard a lot of atheists and agnostics in the program, and it always cracks me up. It seems like there's one in particular that used to go to a lot of meetings I used to go to, and he would spend half the meeting arguing with you about not believing in God. It was like, then why are you arguing with me? If you don't believe in God, why are we even talking about this again? Week after week after week,
Right.
he's trying to convince me that there is no God. And it's like, dude, if you don't want to believe, that's fine. That's your
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
But you sure talk a lot about it. You talk about God more than I talk about God, even if you're denying him.
Right. That's funny.
To each his own.
Yeah.
We, in the program, we don't define who our higher power is or it's your business. You do what feels comfortable for you.
Yeah.
For
It's
me,
that belief though, right? That's the important part, right? That
yeah, yeah,
like I can't handle this, so someone's greater than me the doorknob, I guess, the group, whatever it is, has
Yeah.
got to help me. I need some help. I think that's the, is that
Light
the,
bulb,
is that, am I understanding?
electricity,
Yeah. Yeah.
coffee,
Whatever it is,
whatever it is,
just believe in something
yeah, believe
for
in
that
whatever
next
you want
level.
to believe in.
Yeah.
And it sounds so simplistic, but man, I drank a lot of booze to deny that there was a God out there.
Hmm.
I drank a lot of booze to man, I did not want to utter those words. My name's Brent and I'm an alcoholic. Oh my gosh. That was just like, I don't know what I thought was going to happen to me when I said that. I don't know if I thought my arms were going to fall off or my legs or whatever. But man, I did not want, you know what I think it is, to be honest, is I was afraid to say, my name's Brent and I'm an alcoholic because I knew that if I said that, I probably wouldn't drink again.
Hmm. And you really wanted to drink again.
I didn't, I was afraid to drink
Hmm.
and I was afraid not to drink.
Wow.
I was backed in a corner, and I remember thinking those thoughts before I got into the program.
Hmm.
I'm scared to death to take a drink because I know what's going to happen. I'm going to end up in trouble. I'm going to end up, God only knows where. But oh my gosh, am I afraid not to take a drink? How do I face life on life's terms without a
Hmm.
crutch, without a drink,
Hmm.
without my medicine?
Hmm.
How do I
Hmm.
do that?
So
And
is it the fear? Is that the underlying emotion there? The fear of what that would mean next day if you said, Brent, I'm Brent and I'm alcoholic. The fear of what comes next, is that part of it? I don't know. Is that?
yeah, it's fear of the unknown.
Hmm.
Where does that take you from that point on?
Hmm.
If I don't drink,
Hmm.
then how do I get up in the morning? How do I face the day? How do I go out of the house? How do I even handle my emotions and my feelings? Because, without being numb all the time, I'm going to have to face all this stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm scared to death to do that, but that's what those steps did.
Hmm.
So, along the way, this miracle happens. So you start working these steps, and now we get to 10, 11, and then 12. 12 is when we start giving it back, right? We start to give it to other people. You know, and you have step 12 there? Can you read it?
Yeah.
Maybe I've got it here.
Having a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs.
So, having had a spiritual experience, now, the first time I read that before I ever did 12, long before I did 12, I read that. Yeah, right. Spiritual experience. You might have a spiritual experience. It's not even possible for me.
Hmm. Hmm.
But the truth of the matter is, by the time you work through the steps and you get to this point, all of those negative things that you've done your whole life magically turn into your assets.
Hmm.
Because now, when somebody walks through the door
Well, yeah.
and they come to me, they start to share with me, I will share with them, I did that too. Or I understand where you're coming from because I lived that.
Hmm.
I know what it's like to be in hell. I know what it's like to be a human being without a soul.
Hmm.
I know what it's like not to be a dad. You
Hmm.
want to be a dad. I know what it's like not to be able to be a husband or employable,
Hmm.
or maybe you haven't got an education. I know what it's like to be angry all the time. I know what it's like to go to jail.
Hmm.
I know what it's like to hurt people, the people that you love the most. You hurt them. and that guilt and that shame. I know that feeling. I've been there. So now I'm able to talk to people that nobody else can talk to, not lawyers, not doctors. Now I have a tool, some my experience to be able to break down those walls those people have.
Mhm.
Because half of the time when you're brand new in the program, you don't even know what's wrong with you. You have no idea. All you know is you're uncomfortable.
Mhm.
You're not drinking, and the whole world feels like it's caving in on you
Mhm.
because it is.
Mhm.
But I'm going to give you, you know, people will say, well, how do I stay sober? Well, see those 12 steps? You work those. No, I mean, how do I stay sober? If you let me finish, if you just let me talk, I can help you with this. I've been there. You
Yeah.
work steps, you go to meetings, you work with other alcoholics, you take direction. Call me every day for 30 days. Well, I don't know if I can do that. Well, you're probably not done drinking. You ought to get out there and get drinking because you're probably not ready. Back in the old days, they used to, if you had a watch, they said, "Oh, you're not ready. You're not ready. Go back to drinking. You got way too many valuables. You haven't lost everything yet. You still have a watch? You haven't pawned it?"
Wow.
No, I haven't heard that saying in a long, long, long time, but I
Mhm.
get the gist of it. The gist is if there's Horace used to tell me the worst thing you can give an alcoholic is sympathy. It's the worst thing you can give him. He never gave me 1 ounce of sympathy.
Didn't sound like it. Yeah.
No, he did not. But I learned a lot from him because
Yeah.
of, I'm not here to coddle people. I'm not here to, if somebody wants to get well, I will go with them. I will hold their hand. We will walk through this life together, arm in arm, and we'll be able to accomplish anything we want to. But if they stumble along the way and they start coming up with excuses, I remember when I was working with Horace and he would, ask me to do something and I'd hesitate, just hesitate. I wouldn't even say no. I would just hesitate. Well, maybe you're not done drinking. Maybe you're not done drinking. Maybe you ought to go back to drinking. It's like, whoa, dude, why would you say that? That's the last thing in the world I want. Well, you're not doing what I tell you to do. And if you, the only reason you wouldn't do those things is because you want to drink. The
Mhm.
only reason you don't work the steps is because you want to drink.
Mhm.
And I've told many people that
Mhm.
if they balk, if they they don't want to move forward with their recovery, well, there's nothing I can do. I only help people that want help.
Mhm.
I won't waste my time. And it tells you right in the big book. Don't waste your time on a prospect if they're not willing to do this thing. Don't waste your time. Let them go because you'll find somebody else that wants this.
Mhm.
So go help the ones that want help.
Mhm.
And so those are the people that I try to give my attention to. Every time I sponsor somebody, I'd say I only sponsor people that want to be sponsored. The only, if you don't want to do this thing, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna waste my time.
Yeah. It takes some courage, it sounds like, in your story to believe that more than like we keep going back to, at least I keep thinking about that, more than you want to drink, like that you paint yourself in that corner. And there takes some amount of faith, at least in my mind, how am I making sense of it, that you can get better. And it's so counterintuitive to not talk about like what you described as like when are they going to start talking about not drinking?
Yeah,
Like what, why are we talking about God? Why are we talking about writing, all the harms that we did? Like when are we going to talk about not picking up that glass or that beer or it seems so counterintuitive to someone. And I wonder with someone with an addicted mind, it must seem even more crazy, I would guess.
yeah, yeah. It is until you start doing it,
Mm,
you know. And you're walking through this process and you start on this path and then you all of a sudden you realize, yeah, not only have I not drank for 30 days or 60 days or whatever it is, I haven't even thought about it.
well,
I haven't even, that thought has never crossed my mind. You know, I mean, it's just like, what the heck is happening? And then you start having some faith that maybe, in the book, it talks about alcohol's just a symptom of our disease. It's just a symptom. The alcohol is a small part of the equation.
mm,
The equation is we first off, for lack of better words, we have to grow up.
mm,
We have to face life on life's terms. We have to learn to get rid of the wreckage of our past and come to peace with it. We need to learn to, when we make that amends to the people we've harmed, how valuable that is. It's scary as hell, but
mhm,
how valuable it is for us
mhm,
because these steps are about us.
mhm,
When I go make amends to people, it isn't about them, it's about me. I'm
mhm.
doing that to clean my side of the street up
Yeah.
because, now I can start brushing my teeth and look in the mirror. I don't hate the person that I become. I start having success with who I am as a human being for the first time in my life.
Mhm,
You know, I'm I'm a worthless, I was a worthless human being, and now I'm becoming a valuable member of society.
mhm,
And when I feel good about me, I don't necessarily need that crutch to hide anymore, to kill my feelings, to
mhm,
I remember I'd be walking down the street and there'd be somebody I knew walking on the same side of the street, and I didn't want to see nobody. I'd cross the street.
mhm,
Same thing in a grocery store.
mhm,
You're in the grocery store and you see somebody in the aisle that you knew, but you didn't feel good about whatever about you. So I would go the other way. So you learn to value yourself
mhm.
through this process and become, Jonathan, I always knew that I was a good person inside. I always knew that. I knew I was a good man. I just,
Wow.
I just hid it really well from society.
Yeah.
And when I got sober, I got to really tap into that and become that person that I always knew I could be. I always knew that I had a big heart and I cared about people. Well, when I was drinking, I sure the heck didn't care about anybody but me. But after I got sober, I learned to really quit being so selfish and self-centered, and start caring about other people's feelings and thoughts and think about them as much as I think about myself.
Yeah. You gave your heart a chance to express itself and to feel, at least what I'm understanding, because you had removed the fear.
Yeah,
You had taken these steps, these really hard steps in different areas of your life to overcome that fear and breaking through that with your sponsor. I don't know. Yeah, it makes sense to me. And that's beautiful. Like to me, that is a spiritual awakening. The whole this whole thing is a spiritual experience to me
yeah, yeah,
of every little thing you're doing, even just getting the job. To me, that is a spiritual experience to believe and to have the humility to go, okay, I guess I'll be the delivery boy. Okay, I guess that's what to me that's a spiritual experience. Like and an awakening that you're just gonna do what you gotta do to
yeah.
not take that drink. So
Well, you just said something that just reminded me of something. You said these steps are really hard. That was one of Horace's pet peeves.
oh yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
he was. I could
would have
feel
gone
him.
into me.
I could feel him growl when you said that. It was like, "Ooh, you can't say that. You're
You
going to
say
get in
that.
trouble."
Uh,
No, we'd go to meetings and I would say something to that effect, like these
Yeah.
steps are really hard. And
Yeah.
he would grab me after the meeting. What the heck are you talking about? And he'd just start yelling at me.
Wow.
Hard? You know what's hard? You know what's hard? Living drunk's hard. Being an alcoholic's hard. Working these steps, not so hard.
Wow. Good perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. He
100%.
used to jump down my throat when I'd say stuff like that. And when you said that, I went, ooh,
Oh, that one. Yeah.
that reminds
I say
me.
that. Don't say that in front of Horace.
Don't say that in front of Horace. He'll
Yeah.
yell at you.
No, that's a good point. Like that's the truth of it, right?
Yeah.
I guess, yeah, for me, it sounds hard, right? And maybe for someone who hasn't started this, it sounds
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you gotta change your thinking, man.
Yeah.
You gotta put things into perspective. And the truth is, being a drunk is a lot of work. It's hard. It's a lot of work. It's hard on you. It just beats you down. It isolates you. It wants you alone. So once it's got you alone, dude, it's got you. And it's going to take you to the bitter end. You're going to die.
Mhm.
So the only way to get out of that is to start a community around you,
Mhm.
push each other to the top,
That's right.
hang out with people and do the best you can to become the best person you can.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
it's it's a powerful experience. And once you get to step 12, and now you've worked the steps. Okay. So Horace was like, okay, you gotta start now you get to give this thing away. So now you can sponsor people. Now you can start finding people out there that want help and really get into it. So the beauty of that is, and I was a really lucky individual. I was able to sponsor people right off the bat. People asked me to, I've always had the gift of gab. So, uh, when I would share in meetings, then people would hear me and they would ask me for help and ask me if I'd work the steps with them. So that's a beautiful process because now we get to go back through, I get to go back through those steps with somebody else. And when you
It's like you're
sponsor,
renewing those
yeah,
things.
it's like you're constantly doing that. And throughout the years, year after year after year, I've sponsored, you know, I'm not exaggerating, 100 people, and I've been able to walk through those steps with so many individuals and see it from their perspective. And, the only thing I have, and the book says this, the only thing I have to give another individual is my experience, strength, and hope. You
Mhm.
know, being a sponsor, I don't run their lives. I don't tell them how to live their lives. I tell them what I did. And I mostly talk about what Horace did with me. You know, Horace wouldn't work for everybody. Well,
Mhm.
a lot of people that Horace tried to sponsor and they couldn't do it.
Mhm.
I just knew that for me, that was something that I needed a good butt kick and I needed somebody that was tough with me. And he never really, I don't know, he called me out on my crap, but most of the time he was just brutally honest with me.
Mhm.
So I've been able to share that with a lot of people and how he worked the steps with me and how he worked with me. I've been able to give back so many times. And that's the beauty of this program is no matter how long you've been here, you have a valuable experience to be able to help other people. And I think it's almost a natural, intuitive thing to want to give this away. You want to give it back. You want to share with other people, and that's what this podcast is all about. I live in Arizona now. I go to one meeting a week, which is very difficult for me, and I don't sponsor anybody down here. And so for me to give it away is it's going to have to be at this forum. I'm going to have to do this to help me stay sane and be able to give back to society a little bit. And I truly hope that these episodes help people, touch people, and realize that you're not alone, and your thoughts aren't too crazy. We all have crazy thoughts. And if you've been beat up enough and you're ready to get to work and change your life, a lot of people say the only thing you have to change is everything. If you're ready to change your life, come join us and, stick with this podcast because as time goes on, we're going to have other people come and share with us. We're going to, open it up to where maybe we can answer some questions or maybe even uh, be able to interact with a few folks over email or something to kind of get in touch with me and Jonathan and be able to, you know, we're not just a we're not just out there in podcast land. We're real people that want to help. So
100%. Yeah, I love that. It's been such an honor and privilege for me to just listen to these stories for one and see the beauty of it all. It just is so to me inspired and it's from God. Like that's the only thing I can. That's the bottom line for me. It's just amazing, and I love it because of all of these experiences that you've had that have been negative and they don't get shared. It kind of seems like a waste, right?
yeah,
But that
yeah,
step 12 helps you turn it around into something that's gold for the next person that comes along. So beautiful,
yep,
just
yeah.
beautiful.
And I'm telling you, we got some stories coming up now that we're gonna share that I faced along the way, and so the next few episodes I got a feeling are going to be really pretty interesting. I I've been able to accomplish and do things in AA or not AA, but in the program, uh,
Mhm.
that that proves that this thing is there and it works. And some really hard stuff and some real big successes and just life on life's terms. But uh, get to hear my perspective of all that. And some of these stories are pretty funny, and some of them are pretty sad. But we're going to go down that path too. So
I can't wait. Well, that's awesome. That's a good way to wrap it up. Well, there you go. We finished off the 12 steps. And yeah, I'm excited for what's to come. I'm sure we'll have guests who will be able to answer questions. I think the point is yeah, like you said, that you're not alone and there is hope. And reach out to us and we'd love to be in contact with you. So, all right. Well, we'll close this out. Thanks again, Brent. I sure appreciate you and love you. And I'm just Man, I'm just over the moon that we could do this, and I'm excited to see what happens next.
yeah, thanks, buddy. Love you.
See you next time, everyone. Ciao.
Thanks for listening to Push Each Other to the Top. Brent's story is a reminder that even in our darkest moments, there's still a path forward and someone willing to walk it with us. If this episode meant something to you, share it. And if you're struggling right now, please know you're not alone. Follow the show wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss the next story. And if you can, leave a quick review. It helps more people find these conversations. New episodes drop soon. We hope you'll come back. Continue listening for behind the scenes, moment after we ended the episode.
Yeah, it really is, it's fun to review kind of because that's what 12 does. It looks like kind of takes you back to the beginning, right? And
Yeah.
and to help you get and help others and reach out. I love it. It's beautiful. It really is. And
You just stop and realize that the first 11 steps, when it talks about the spiritual awakening,
Mhm.
you really realize that you've changed. By
Right,
working those steps, you're a different person. And
right.
it's kind of a slap in the face. It's like, wow, this stuff works. It's like, holy heck, it's so simple. It's really so simple, but yet it's so powerful.
That's the beauty right there.
Well,
Yeah.
addiction is so powerful, man. You've seen a lot of people, just wither away, lose everything. I always told people I never lost anything. I was willing to give it up. I gave up my family and my business and everything for drugs and alcohol. I gave it up. I didn't lose anything. I voluntarily gave it up. And it's just it's so powerful. But all it takes is one alcoholic talking to another, and you become more powerful than that disease. And for me, that is unbelievable to think that all it takes is just one other person that you share with. And
Yeah. And to me, that only God can make that kind of thing happen.
oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
You're absolutely right.
Like to me, that's like, it doesn't happen on its own.
I
That's
know. Because you hear about it all the time, how powerful addiction is and how many people it destroys and all this stuff. And it's like, how do you overcome that? And it's just one alcoholic talking to another. That's all it takes. And as soon as you get two people like that in a room, boom,
yeah,
that community. So
Yeah.
you wrap yourself with this community,
yeah,
which I don't know, the human soul, I think, I think it just, I think it just loves that community. You
Yeah.
can't do it. You can't do it.
We're meant to help each other. That's what I
Yes.
believe.
Yes.
Right. And this alcohol and the disease has collapsed that desire down to just such selfishness, right?
Yes.
And it, at least from your story, what I'm hearing, what I'm understanding is that you break those barriers, you break that fear, you break that addiction, you come, and then you can start to live. And the inclination is to be a good person, to help others, to love others, to,
Yes.
I don't
And to
know.
put down all the stubbornness. Like you and you're a religious man. You believe in a religion.
Yeah. Yeah.
For us, it doesn't matter.
Right. Right.
What
That's
you
right.
do and what I do doesn't matter.
Right.
We
Right.
still help and love each other. And just to come across that barrier, which
Right.
so many people can't do,
That's crazy.
we've knocked down that barrier.
Yeah.
And because of that, we can have conversations like this,
Yeah.
and there's no judgment. There's nothing but love.
Exactly.
Really,
Yeah, exactly.
we help each other. And I just think that's just one example of what this is all about, the community, the power of helping other people and pushing each other to the top. When you truly want that person in your life to be the best they can be, truly, not because of what you want out of this situation, but for them to have everything you want.
Yeah.
Like, I want Jonathan to be super, super successful, not necessarily monetarily, but within his soul, within his person. You know what I'm saying? Because I believe money will come no matter what. If you're a good person and you're doing the next right thing, that part of life just takes care of itself.
Right.
I'm not saying that you don't have to put effort into it, you don't have to work at it, but I'm just saying is, if you focus more on relationships and building relationships and helping other people to grow and change, man, that's what it's all about.